Welcome to Primetime Mitch, and today I welcome Lauren from Analysing Horror, and we are going to be discussing the 1988 The Blob, directed by Chuck Russell. First of all, Lauren, thank you so much for joining me today. How's it going?
Oh, it's going great. Thank you so much for having me. I love The Blob, so always happy to talk about it.
Well, I must say thank you for actually suggesting this, because it's long overdue for me to watch it. I think the last time I saw it, I was about 15.
I've got the shirt, actually. I'm wearing
That is absolutely amazing, that shirt. I feel underdressed.
Oh, no. Don't feel that way. I love this shirt so much. I had to bust it out.
Well, it's brilliant. So what I wanted to discuss first of all is, since you suggested it, what was your first exposure to The Blob, or the movie The Blob, should I say?
It was actually just about a year or two ago. I have a YouTube channel, so I was actually recommended to do like an original versus remake kind of video. And one of them was for The Blob. And I watched the 1950s, I believe it is. And then I watched the 1980s one. And I just fell in love with it so much for the practical effects. Like, I'm a big advocate for like The Thing. I love the practical effects that are in that. And I feel like The Blob kind of replicates that a little bit. So, the practical effects and just like the way the movie unfolds, I thought it was just absolutely brilliant. So it immediately became a favorite of mine, even though I've only watched it my first watch was like only a couple years ago. So yeah, I just love it.
You're quite recent.
Been a couple of years.
Yeah, yours is quite recent. Like, I mean, I watched it when I was sort of a child, and I then didn't bother again for another 20 years. So it's like watching it for the first time again, really.
Yeah. Unfortunately, my mother wasn't keen on horror, so she didn't encourage that. So I had to like seek it out, like at sleepovers and stuff like that. It was gone.
that was mine when I was 15. It was a Halloween marathon, and that was like number 3 on the list or something.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. My sleepovers were mostly like The Ring, The Grudge, like, like things that came out as I was getting older. But I love going back to movies that like haven't been very popular, but really are awesome.
Switched it on the first time you're watching it. What were your expectations?
I didn't see. In general, like I'm the type of person that just goes in like blind. I'm like, just like, show me a good time. Like I'm not really going in with expectations, but at the same time, it was very interesting. Like, the homeless guy that like had it like initially on his hand. I was just like, oh God, what's going to happen here? I was scared. At the same time, I'm like, I have no idea what's about to happen next.
I hadn't seen the original. And so I just went into the remake. And obviously with the name like the Blob, I always think this is going to be ridiculous. And even when it started, I mean, I always think the introductions, it's almost like the introduction to an episode of X-Files or Twin Peaks. It's all that calm music and that like the deserted sort of town and all that. That actually got me excited for it. I didn't expect to find anything that scary just because of the title. So maybe that was a bit naive, really, in that sense.
No, that's completely fair, because I agree. I feel like the title The Blob doesn't evoke a lot of like mystery or horror or anything like that, but I find myself like really genuinely terrified of the Blob during the movie. Like the movie theater scene is absolutely so scary, just because imagine putting yourself in like a movie theater and then something like that's coming out at you.
Yeah, something that shouldn't be scary. Very, very scary. And I think I really admired the work they put in to try and keep the terror, because you can veer off into the comedy far too much with that kind of material.
I agree. Yeah, or the phone booth scene, that was another one that like could have been kind of cheesy, but was actually proper scary.
Yeah. I mean, that sort of leads me on actually, because I was going to ask you what were your thoughts on the characters and the acting and everything, because the phone booth scene shocked me because they kept killing people I didn't expect them to kill.
Right. Yeah, I said the phone booth scene, and there was also like what's it, the garbage disposal scene, like the guy that had his hand stuck in. That I feel like those are two of my favorites. There's so many great kills in this movie, and that's one of the reasons why I love it so much. But yeah, that's definitely like the first like most shocking one, and I really enjoy that. But the performances, I think that everyone did a really great job.
Because I know 𝐂𝐿𝐊𝐄 is one of her early roles. I mean, the first time I saw her was in an X-Files episode. I think it was like 93 or 94. And obviously she's famous for Saw now. But
she is, isn't she?
Yeah.
Kevin's the one that like makes it with her. And I'm on IMDb right now, so I'm struggling to find the guy, but the one that like had like the whole like face thing and like his hand was outstretched and stuff.
Terrifying.
Like that was so shocking. Yeah. Like it's so scary. Like, and I love how movies like that, like for me, I forget that I'm watching a horror movie and I'm just like, oh my God, it's happening to somebody. Instead it's like, oh, it's an actor like in a suit or something.
Well, the movie's done its job then, hasn't it, really?
Exactly. Yeah.
I thought the acting was very good in this movie. That I thought throughout it was very believable. It's easy to sort of be a little sort of cheesy and a bit almost farcical, but I think they were solid throughout. I thought every performance. I was so sad because I saw that Jeffrey DeMunn was in it. I don't remember him when I first watched it when I was a kid, but obviously years of watching other movies, he's one of my favorite actors. You know, I'd seen him in Green Mile and Christmas Evil and movies like that, and I was really, really sad when he died because he's the only nice sheriff I've seen in a movie. You know, calm, collected, wasn't wisecracking, didn't like, usually they don't believe anybody when they're in trouble and stuff, but he was nice. And when I saw him floating past the phone booth in the Blob, I was like devastating.
Oh, no, I can appreciate that. I feel like that's one of the good parts about the Blob in the sense of like a horror movie where you don't expect someone to get got and then they have been got by the Blob, and just like, oh, you see the aftermath, you don't actually see the actual attack.
Yeah, you just see it's already got them. You never even see that bit. It's that quick.
Yeah.
And they kill a child as well.
And that's one of the reasons why I love the movie theater scene, because like it's merciless. Like it'll attack literally anything that's in its path, and child, adult, like doesn't matter. So
well, I mean, and not only that, it doesn't only just kill a child, which is not something that they you often see. I mean, I know Jaws did it and maybe a couple of others, but this one actually does it in a really brutal way as well. It doesn't, like you said, it's unflinching, it's ruthless.
Yeah, it's like acidic too. It's not like Jaws, where maybe like it's an instant like bite and then death. It's like the slow deterioration, which makes it so much worse.
Didn't Chuck Russell and Frank Darabont, they said something like it was supposed to be a stomach but turned inside out, so they had all the acid. Yeah. That was the idea they had.
Or like the guy, like what was like the homeless guy at the very beginning, and like they took him to the hospital, and like his like entire lower half was completely
liquidized, isn't it?
Acid. Yeah, it's just like, oh my God, like that, without even knowing what the Blob is, whatever that is terrifying at the very beginning. It's very effective. I love it.
Well, again, I mean, this is smooth flowing, this, but that has also led me on to asking, what was your favorite of all the effects that were on display? Which one stands out for you the most?
Right. I mean, it's hard to say because so many practical effects scenes were fantastic in this movie. But I think if I were to pick personally my favorite one, it would either be, like the boyfriend or like the date with
The
like the
date.
hand reaching out.
Yeah.
That one, or I feel like the other one would be the car scene with the guy that was kind of like trying to get his girlfriend drunk, and then he's like, "Oh, like let me unbutton this a little bit," and then she like
the face. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that at all. That was actually really scary.
Yeah. I loved that because it was like an emotional roller coaster. So it starts off with just like, "Hey, what are you doing there? Hey, what are you doing? Oh, you're getting gotten. Oh no."
I mean, he was being a jerk with her as well, but I not like she did.
So.
I was like, you deserve that, but she didn't,
Yeah, neither one of you. Well, she didn't deserve it. He kind of did, but but yeah, I liked that one because of the way that her face contorts and stuff, and I was not expecting it at all. So I think that's one of my favorites, just because it startled me the first time I watched it.
Oh, mine is definitely the opening death with the date that the doctors when it comes off the ceiling, because you're right. It's not only is it the hand, but he also has the mouth wide open, like screaming, doesn't he?
Yeah, and it like pulls, and at one point it kind of like distorts his face. Like that's just. I don't mean to sound like a psycho, but that is gorgeous practical effects. It's beautiful.
It's to sound like a psycho when you're talking about horror.
Yeah, if you're a horror fan, just embrace it.
Absolutely. I think as well, it's like those kind of effects. You obviously seen the kind of stuff that The Thing offered. I don't think it's too far behind that kind of quality.
Yeah,
really. I mean, that's always the measuring stick, The Thing, isn't it? I mean,
absolutely. I could be wrong, but I think The Thing was 1985, and the Blob was 88. So I feel like they're kind of close to each other in the terms of like what they use to make things seem real. And I would much rather practical effects over CGI, because I feel like CGI, it takes me out of the movie where I'm like, I am watching something that's not here.
Yeah. A little bit of CGI is okay, but they saturate it. And I think nowadays, and the only time you really see like the CGI and you can see it's CGI is, I think it's in the sewers, when it's anything that's large scale, you can see that they've used it. But like the close-ups and everything, it's all practical and it's beautiful.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I feel like I love the movie The Faculty, but at the same time, I feel like they use CGI almost like too heavily. They use practical effects, but there are a lot of scenes where it's just like it's CGI, and I can tell it's CGI. Whereas like, I don't know, like just older movies, like I love them so much because they actually put the effort into making it practical effects, and like your brain tells you that's not real, but at the same time, it looks real. So it's unsettling way. And I love that so much. So I would much rather watch an older movie with practical effects than a newer movie with CGI.
Well, at the time they used CGI in sort of a lazy way. They could do it practically, but they just want a quick and easy solution to a scene rather than thinking about it. And I think that's where I get frustrated. I mean, just as an example, like I love the Final Destination franchise. The one I absolutely hate of all of them. I love I love 1, 2, 3, and 5, and I hate 4 because it is drenched in CGI to the point where it's like it may as well just be cartoon.
No, that makes sense, and I feel like you're right that sometimes you need CGI. Like maybe something's like too big to like actually make practical, and so you need the help. But if you're completely heavily relying on CGI, I feel like that's a detriment to the movie. So
I think the best example, I'm probably going off on a tangent here, but I'm just going to say it anyway. I think the best example is the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street when he's coming through the wall. That was such a simple process in the original, and they made this liquid man, in the remake, which didn't have half the effect.
Right. No, the original, the way that he like went in like that was so iconic. So for them to essentially cheap out for the remake is very very disappointing.
I'm so glad that I like talking to people that love practical. Really do.
Yeah.
There should be more of it. The other question,
we could do a whole podcast about like how much I love practical effects. Like I could go into detail with every like that happened and that happened. Like it's so cool. Like I love it so much.
Actually, a really good idea for a show. Actually, to try and sort of do practical versus CGI in certain movies. I think that would be a good video.
Yeah, that would encourage, like you bring up movies and like, oh, this movie has more practical effects, and then maybe encourages someone to go watch the movie and all that stuff. That sounds great.
Again, flowing perfectly into how does it hold up today?
Oh, I mean, I feel like I've already babbled enough about it, but I think it holds. I think it definitely holds up. It's like because The Thing. If someone were to ask me, "What's your favorite horror movie of all time?" The Thing is always going to be my answer. One of them is because of the practical effects and just how it's unsettling, even though you can like see it and it's like, okay, this isn't like CGI. It's not like actually real, but it still bothers you. And I feel like the Blob does a really great job of that too. So I personally think it holds up. I think the actual like being the Blob maybe would deter some people from actually like seeking the movie out because they may think that it's like a little bit silly, but because of the way that the kills are and stuff like that, I think that it's a really great like horror movie, or horror thriller, whatever you want to call it. But I think it definitely holds up, and it's proper scary actually.
I actually kind of went a little ahead of the time, because it was very brave the way they made it, considering like we spoke about just before this came on about the original being quite that was more silly, and more sort of I think the music in the first one's a bit ridiculous as well, and weirdly placed. It's like almost like some sort of Shakespearean play. You think they were doing, but I think they're really brave in the sense that they just went absolutely balls to the wall with this one, as opposed to just they almost forgot the title was The Blob and just went in for this really quite horrific film, and it does become that like increasingly throughout.
Yeah, I love that. Like you said, like they went with the Blob, but the Blob is still this like acidic like alien creature that could still mess your shit up real good. So like, yeah, it's called the Blob, but don't let it touch you or you're gonna get messed up real good. Well, I love that though, because like there's that whole scene in the sewer. I think the main female character, and she had like two like kids with her, and it like gets one of the kids at one point and kind of throws like the skeleton back at her. Like it does not
out of the water.
I love that it was unrelenting. Or there's also another scene like kind of towards like in the third act. There's this one guy that gets like his back pulled through like a small section of
and he snaps in half.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, that was incredible.
It was incredible. I got a real thing about breaking bones and stuff, and that really I had the hat down over my eyes. It was really impressive though, because again, that's not something you saw like in the 80s. You didn't see a lot of like extreme body trauma like that.
I thought it was impressive like in a horror movie, and for me I was just like, oh my God. But then when you're watching it knowing that it's a movie, I'm like, that was incredibly impressive. Like, who did that? I need to shake their hand. Like,
you have the same guys that had worked on, I think, Tremors and I think Nightmare 4.
Really?
I also think I had it written down somewhere. Lyle Conway, something. He'd worked on Blade and Little Shop of Horrors and things like that. So you can sort of you can see it in the movie. You can see these little touches here and there that these guys have sprinkled in.
Yeah, you can tell that there's a passion when it comes to the practical effects and how they make it like happen. So, yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why I love the remake so much is because of that, and to know that there's like connections to other horror movies make it all the more sense.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of, one of my bullet points was like, I think we've already answered this, was it's sort of a balance, obviously, with the title and with the theme. It's a horror, but there's comedy in there. But do they balance it out well, or do they lean more towards one than the other? I think the original leans more to the comedy and the sort of drama, whereas the remake is just full on horror with a little tiny bit of comedy thrown in.
I would completely agree with you. I feel like the original definitely does like more like comedic, like silly, slapsticky kind of like humor. And there's a couple of scenes with the blob that is actually like scary. Whereas the remake definitely, like, I feel like it leans heavily into horror, but then there are like the comedic moments that, make you feel like you have like a second to breathe a little bit. But like for the most part, it definitely is it's horror. And like we were saying earlier with the practical effects and like all of the crazy stuff that happens, the blob gets you. Like it's not that it just gets you, like the results afterwards. I feel like it's a original of itself. So
throw a little bit of comedy into the remake. I mean, I thought the pharmacy scene with her dad, when he's the ribbed thing, when he finds out that his date is I thought that was hysterical. I also thought there's a line at the beginning which I laughed out loud, like stupidly loud at, and I don't think if it would have been in the movie theater, I think I'd have been the only one. But she says to the kid, she says, "Don't eat with your face."
Kevin, don't eat with your face.
And I nearly fell off my chair, and I just thought that was hysterical. It has its moments. Mainly horror.
Oh, it definitely does. Yeah. I feel like I think his name, I just looked it up, but Dylan, I think his name was, like the rebel guy that was always on his bike. I feel like he had some good moments where he didn't, it wasn't like trying to be comedic, but because like he's like kind of like the rugged bad guy, and then he says something like,
he can't be funny. Yeah, he ain't got time to be funny. But he does.
Like, get on the bike.
Well, he says that bit when she says like the door's locked. He says, "Don't worry, I've got a key, and it's a brick." I think that's fantastic.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. He is not trying to be funny, but he's funny in just like the backhanded way. I love that. Yeah.
Well, I've got to ask before, just as we close, if you could describe this movie in a sentence. Say you were given the job of putting a very short synopsis on like IMDb or something. How would you describe this movie in one sentence?
That's very tough. I guess my first thought would be something like alien creature terrorizes town.
That's better, because if you look at the YouTube description, I think the movie there's a I can't remember what clip it is, but there's a description underneath, and it says a creature falls from space to the earth. And it's like, okay, and then it goes that resembles jelly. Don't know how that's supposed to reel you in. I really don't. So yours is far better.
Thank you.
I would say
you're absolutely right. It resembles jelly. It's like, what?
Yeah, I'm really looking for that to terrify me. But I would say it's the love child of The Thing and Flubber.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, I love that. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it might not scare people, but it'll pique their curiosity, I think.
Yeah. Oh man, Flubber. That takes me back.
I know. Yeah. I went to watch that. I paid to watch Flubber. It's Robin Williams though, so you know.
I was about to say, you shouldn't be ashamed of that.
Not at all. There's far worse guilty pleasures in my cupboard, I can assure you.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. I would agree. I don't even know what they are, but I agree.
Well, I just want to say, Lauren, thank you so much for bringing me back to the Blob. I am so mad at myself for spending 2 decades not bothering watching it. But thank you so much for coming on Primetime Mitch and doing this joint review. And I would love you to come back at some point to discuss any other material-based horror movies that you might have for me. Maybe we'll get around to the Evil Dead remake, like the other one that you suggested. So.
Oh, yeah, that would be fun. No, I'm glad to reintroduce you to the Blob, and happy to come back on. So for whatever movies or whatever sounds good.
Thank you very much, guys. This has been me, Mitch Cassidy, and Lauren from Analysing Horror, discussing the Blob. Please smash a like down below, hit that subscribe and notification button, and I will see you very soon.